Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us on today's show. Now, Latvia has had some incredible austerity measures. You were just telling me 30% of civil servants have been effectively cut in the last year or so. Do you believe that Greece through this with the measures they've announced so far, or do they need to have more painful measures?
Certainly Latvia has made a huge fiscal adjustment, well over 10% of GDP, whereas Greece's fiscal adjustment currently amounts to 4% of GDP. But by doing so, they will arrive at budget deficit levels of around 8.7% of GDP and should be moving further. So further austerity measures will be needed anyway to come to the Maastricht criteria. And in a case of Greece, them having a very high accumulated debt already, they should really be thinking in moving into budget with surpluses.
Now, yesterday we had this agreement after the Franco-German proposal. Were you part of any of the discussion? Were the leaders that aren't part of the Eurozone consulted?
Well, I would say this package which was formed, it was really like Eurozone package with IMF. It was not like other EU member states would be involved in this package.
Latvia has expressed its concern to join the euro at some point. What has this Greek debt crisis done to your hopes? Would it be better for you to join the euro or actually worse?
Certainly we stick with our plan to join the euro. We have put a target date January 1st, 2014. For this, we need to meet Maastricht criteria in 2012, and that's still certainly our intention. Of course, it's quite clear that this Greece issue should not affect the enlargement of the Eurozone, if you want, because certainly other countries should not be punished that one of the Eurozone countries is not performing.
Have you had talks that say actually they're going to be much more difficult on who they're going to allow in the Eurozone because of what we've seen with Greece?
Well, again, the problem is, I would say, not with the Maastricht criteria as they are now. The problem is that Greece was not fulfilling Maastricht. So I don't see much sense in strengthening Maastricht criteria. I think they are stringent enough. For example, on the budget deficit, Maastricht criteria is 3%, Greece has 12.7% deficit, so you'll see the difference. So what will be needed is more like a stronger monitoring and sanctions mechanism. And initially, if you remember, Stability and Growth Pact had sanctions, but then those were withdrawn, and that's why we have those problems now.
Prime Minister, we heard from the ECB President, Mr. Jean-Claude Trichet, that he was actually very concerned that if you go to the IMF, then the Eurozone kind of loses some of its political power. What did it feel like for Latvia when the IMF came in and helped you restructure some of the debt?
Well, IMF is, of course, a lender of the last resort. So it comes with certain conditions, like to reduce budget deficit quickly at huge costs to many fields in the economics, in the social sphere, and so on and so on. Certainly it's not a very pleasant way for a country to have IMF, but once the country has come so far that they need lender of the last resort, so it cannot be too pleasant. So, and certainly I think it's a good idea to have IMF in this Greek package because it will give bigger credibility with the financial markets.
Now, given the appetite for risk at the moment, would you be calling on the international markets for bonds?
Currently we do not intend so. We are having our international loan package, and in fact what we are doing now, we are also negotiating to slow up a little bit absorption pace of this package, because currently we have plenty of cash in the treasury, and we do not need to pile up excessive reserves and to pay interest on them.
Prime Minister, what word of advice today would you give to the Greek Prime Minister?
Well, I would say in the situation like this, when you have a budget deficit of 12.7% of GDP, there is not much of a choice. It down, of course, it's painful. It may harm the economic growth, but there is no other choice.
So a message of solidarity, almost.
Certainly.
Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us.